And I have had this conversation with directors. Just know I'm on your side, but I am going to ask you the difficult questions or dissect stuff, because if I don't, the media will.
Hello and welcome to Land and Deliver. I'm Darren Wingham and welcome to today's podcast, making messages land and delivering them in ways that make people care and act. With me is Louise Chandler-Rutt, and if you're responsible for making messages land and what happens after it's delivered, then this podcast is for you. Now, Louise, difficult scenario that could be faced by comms leaders, or if you're in marketing and you've got an expert in front of you.
This is what happens. If you're in internal comms, basically if you're responsible and in charge for taking a piece of information and putting it out into the world, and that could be communicating it to stakeholders, investors, fellow peers and colleagues, or putting something out into the public. I think if you are in this space, there will be, at some point, depending on your seniority, a meeting that is put into your diary, be it in person or virtual. And sometimes you don't even know what the meeting's about. So you go and you attend, and next thing you know, you're faced with an expert colleague who wants to share a particular briefing to let you know that they need to get some information out into the world. Now, you're sat on this call and meeting, and all these words are being thrown at you. Maybe some of them are new, could be jargon, could be acronyms, could be phrases that you're sat thinking, politely nodding, thinking, I don't know what's going on. What is this?
They're English words, but they're not making any sense.
I
It's
don't know
parallel
what's
language.
going on. And not only do you not understand what's going on, but you're now thinking, how am I going to take this information and make it land and have impact and purpose with my desired audience? It's really tricky. I've been in these situations in various campaigns and projects, be it about public health, coronavirus, goodness me, COVID-19, adult social care, children's services, where you're not the expert, but you're talking to the expert and you're relying on the information they give you, and then you're thinking, right, now what happens next?
And the danger can be is, you can have quite a difficult conversation where you're both right, where they insist that the information needs to be carried in this way, these caveats and all the rest of it, and this language used. And you as someone who needs to translate that into something that's more palatable, whether it's for comms or maybe for marketing, it's thinking this is not going to land with people. And we say that it's not necessarily a communication failure. It's almost fear on the part of the expert, because your job is to go, okay, I understand that, and you've got to try and earn their trust to say, okay, we understand what you're saying, but we need to move on this. And their fear is very real, isn't it?
I think so. I think I totally agree with you. What we're talking about here, before we even get to the topic, before we even get to a campaign or putting information out for comms purposes, you're talking about something here, and I'm going to use a word. Well, there's two words I'm going to use, not naughty ones, may I add. Ego and trust are the two.
Yes.
Now, the reason why I say ego, it's not in a negative sense, but here you have someone who may have lots of credentials, qualifications, and really great credibility in their field and industry. So they know their stuff, and they know that, and they want to maybe impress or impart a certain number of knowledge and pieces of information to everyone else. And as comms experts, we are in the position where we are trying to, dare I say, massage their ego and say that, yes, we know that you know all your stuff, and we have to listen and make sure that we entertain it, but we then also have to build their trust. I had a scenario I was telling you about before where I walked in as a press and comms person for adult social care, and my first meeting with the Deputy Director of Adult Social Care in local government wasn't a great one. She didn't know me. There'd been a history of short-term contracts of people doing the role. I walk in breezy and light, morning, how are you? Hiya. And she just looked at me and said, what's the point of me briefing you on stuff? How long are you here for? Are you going to get moved around to another department? And she was fed up about something that wasn't even my fault.
Yeah.
So my first briefing with her about a really important adult social care story, it wasn't even about the story at first. It was about me kind of playing to her ego a bit in the kindest way, but also about me earning her trust. Because the reason why trust is so important, we are trying to say to this expert, that we know that they know their stuff, but they have to trust us to share it in a way that's meaningful and impactful. And this is why trust is so important, because messaging on all levels works and relies on trust. But the first kind of key element of that is when you are faced with that expert and you are saying to them, trust me, I have your best interests at stake. I have your organisation or the business's best interests at heart. And you have to trust me to make the most wise and informed decisions to get the information out there. And it may be in a way that they don't recognise. It may be in a way that they're not used to before. They don't know you. They don't know what you're going to do. And that trust is so vital.
You're right. But also as people, perhaps in marketing or in comms, you've got two almost, and then we will show you how they're not opposing, but you've got two opposing points of view here. Is the expert is going, hang on a minute, lady or mister, I'm the expert, I know more than you, therefore what I say goes. You as the person in marketing or in communications or someone who's trying to take that messaging and make it and communicate it elsewhere is saying, okay, that's great, but people I know that I want to talk to, I'm the bridge, it's not going to land. And I suppose really, I always see my role as the one that's pivotal. And if I'm in an example, for example, where I've dealt with pharmaceutical, I'm dealing with PhD grade people, 2 E's and then at A-level me, that's going to be obvious from the get-go. And there's no way I can ever beat them on knowledge. But what I can say is that, you as an expert are afraid of being sued, being wrong, and being against regulatory approval. Also, they will come to me as someone who isn't PhD level and go, well, you're going to dumb down, aren't you? And I think we also, as professionals, we need to understand their mindset and understand their mindset. So then we gain their trust that whilst we are not, the horses of the information, we are the chariot driver getting them to the right place in the right way, without kind of going down so many different avenues we get lost.
You're 100% right. And I think, let's be honest, these scenarios happen in time pressures.
Yeah.
It should have been done yesterday. It's we need this signed off by today at 4. And you're like, well, it's 2 o'clock now. What am I going to do with it? So it's always in time pressures, and not just time pressures in terms of deadlines, but time pressures in terms of the expert's time. They have just about got 15 minutes to brief you. I used to have weekly briefings with a director of adult social care, and thankfully I got it set up in his diary with his PA that was 20 minutes every Monday morning repeated. But if I didn't, that was because I carved out that time, and I wanted to try and almost get ahead of the curve to make sure it wasn't always knee-jerk reaction and we were being proactive about what was coming up. But again, this comes on trust. It comes on building relationships. And the other thing I will say is, if you are able to build trust effectively, the dynamic of being kind of at loggerheads with each other will start to hopefully fade. If you earn their trust, it won't always be, I know best as the expert and you don't. It will be a meeting of minds, because I always used to say to the expert voice, I am here to get the best for us. Yeah. And that means, for example, if I need to give this story to the media, I know what the media want and need, but I know what we need to do to protect ourselves as a government organisation or business. Trust me, and I will broker and be in the middle. I was caught between a rock and a hard place. So it isn't always about, well, I'm the expert with the PhD, I know best. You do know best in certain spaces. Put you in a lecture hall or put you in a certain environment, goodness, you'd knock socks off of me. But also, I know best too. And it's not always a upmanship or in that sense, one over the other. It's a meeting of minds. It's the trust. It's that we are going to get the best together.
Because I think the impact of that is quite serious. I was dealing with an academic who was trying to get funding, and I saw their PowerPoint presentation, and seriously, it was just horrendous. It was almost in font 3 with all this information in there. And the impact actually is that you can affect the business if you don't get this right as a communications professional, or if you're in marketing, because I just met this person, and he gave me a story where he went in with that PowerPoint presentation to a potential investor, and that potential investor just looked at that and went, do you know what? Just give me the numbers. So this PowerPoint that was 20 slides long, packed full of information, was completely useless and wasn't able to tell the story. The bloke just said, just give me the numbers. It was a 15-minute meeting and he walked out. So the impact can be really quite substantial on the business.
It can. And I think when we talk about trust as well, and all the things we're talking about at the moment, we haven't even got into the how you're going to do it yet, right? So people are probably listening to this and watching this and thinking, well, tell me how I'm going to do it. We'll get to that. But what we're trying to set up here and frame is it's not even about the message at first. It's all these transferable skills I think often we overlook because we are time poor. We've got an expert in front of us of all this specialist knowledge, and we think we kind of go into a bit of an autopilot. Right, we're going to do this, but sometimes you've got to take a step back. Think of mindset, like you said before, Darren. You know, this person is so close to this information. This might be their life's work. This might be they've invested all their energies, money, whatever it is, into learning this set of skills and knowledge. What they don't want is someone to just walk in and rip that apart. So our empathy and our mindset, and I have had this conversation with directors and gone, I'm on your side, but I'm also going to be honest and I'm also going to challenge you to get what we need.
Yeah.
But just know I'm on your side, but I am going to ask you the difficult questions or pull stuff apart or dissect stuff, because if I don't, the media will, or your stakeholder will, or your investor will. And when you put it in layman's terms like that, they go, okay, they get it. Because you're not just coming in and ripping up the manual and going, stop. You're actually explaining why you need to be maybe more critical or more, or explore more options than they might have thought of. And often, another word I'll use here is respect.
Yes.
You will earn respect because you are not just a nodding dog to go, yes, okay, I'll say all those words and no one will understand them and it'll be fine. You will earn their respect when you start asking these really important questions that we're going to talk about now.
Yeah. So what we're here really to do is to kind of do two things really. One is it's our job to help them, as it were. So, if you're in comms or in marketing, your job is to help them. But also we, Louise and I, are here to help you into get them into that mind space so that you can both come to the right place that you're both happy with, really. And we're going to walk you through a couple of real examples to show you how clarity didn't come from knowing more. Because I think it's really, it is intimidating when you walk. I've had briefings from people who know much more than me, and that's really quite intimidating. So it's not coming from knowing more, but it's choosing, what matters now, because you are that filter, as it were. And so by the end of this episode, you'll be able to recognise when that fear in an expert is driving that over explanation. And also it's your job then, we'll show you how you can create that space for experts to feel safe without overwhelming them, and also help messages land clearly without losing integrity. And that's where trust comes in, because you're an expert. Integrity is everything to them, isn't it?
It really is. And again, I think I've said it already, but to repeat, these are people who they've probably spent X amount of years studying and devoting their time and energies and money and resources to be an expert in this field and this industry. And then, we walk in and go, right, we're going to change that. And you're like, you can understand it. I completely respect it.
Yeah. So if this all resonates with you, don't forget we have pulled together some extra thinking and practical prompts in our show notes, which you can download from this episode from our website. So our website is landanddeliver.co.uk, and you sign up there and basically you get an alert when next episode comes out, but also you get those show notes, which we're quite conscious that we're packed full of thinking, and that those show notes can help you just kind of digest that and then go a bit deeper into it if you need to. So let's just kind of get into the main thing of some practical examples of how you and I have talked to experts, and in our younger years felt perhaps a little bit intimidated by them, but managed to get to where we needed to go. And just, in your example, Louise, when you've had a conversation, what happens?
So I think it doesn't matter what the topic is, really. There's some common themes here. There's times when I've briefed directors in education, public health, adult social care, children's services, tech company, finance. And don't get me wrong, I like to think I'm a fairly intelligent person, but I'm certainly not an expert in any of those fields. However, the first thing is to just really get an appreciation and understanding with the experts in terms of where they're coming from. What is it that they need to start with? Because, yeah, that's always at the first in, really. And it is the listening. It is the, dare I say it, agony aunt, where you are listening to what they have to share and what they want to tell you. It's going to start the conversation going. So
essentially it's just kind of that conversation that happens where, you know, they come along and they give you lots and lots of information, and they kind of also know, they tell you what it is they want to achieve. You hear all that information and you kind of go, hang on a minute, there's the language isn't right, or we've got too much in there. And typically, if not handled well, you're then going as the expert, okay, that's great, but we need to actually change the language or say less. And then the expert will go, well, hang on a minute, I'm the expert, I'm going to get sued here. Actually, that can't happen. And all of a sudden you've got that conflict, and that's really, really hard. And after enough of these conversations, you know, something becomes clear in that it's not about the experts being bad at communication. It's about, you know, or even failing to handle that situation. It's about the fact that we're often asking experts to do something quite genuinely difficult, bearing in mind they've spent their life in detail, which is to simplify ideas that really carry responsibility, risk and consequence.
I think there's a couple of things as well I'm going to throw into the mix that will make life easier. Now, this isn't in every scenario because it depends on how well you know your expert. It also depends on the story and the piece of information that you're working on. But I'll say two things based on my experience. Firstly, preparation is really important. Whenever I've worked with an expert in a field, I've done a bit of research where possible to get an overview of who they are and where they're coming from. So if they do come to you with a story that's a bit left field or completely out of the blue, you might have a rough feeling of their knowledge and expertise and when they come from. The second thing that most people as comms experts listening to this will know is that you've got a style guide. A style guide helps you. Not always, and sometimes I'll let you into a secret. You can rest on the style guide a bit and say, well, in our style guide, we do this. Now, this is signed off at director level. So actually what you tend to find is if a particular expert has a ego or particular pressure on them to share comms in a particular way, you can then use that style guide and say, well, actually, we do it in this way, or there's a method to the madness, basically. So yeah, that can also help. But admittedly, that may not be every case in every scenario. It depends.
So yeah, very much from our side, I think it's the mindset of how do we get better messaging out of our experts and helping them go into a place where they're comfortable doing that, and how can we create those conditions where clarity is actually possible. And so what would you say? Sorry.
No, not at all. I was going to say, I know there's a framework that we've been talking about, which is safe, simple and strong. Which I think is a really good way. Write it on a Post-it note for your next meeting.
Yes.
Because it will help you to go, oh, hang on, this is getting a bit out of hand. So simple and strong, because whether you have a style guide or not, whether you've done your prep or not, whether you are familiar with the expert or not, this is really challenging. We know it's not easy. There are people who've been working in this industry for a long time who may still struggle with this. If this is your first time that you're getting into a role where you are briefing and working with experts, it may be new to you. And this is why Safe, Simple and Strong is going to help. Yeah.
So let me just take you through what Safe, Simple and Strong is, just kind of from a headline perspective. And again, this information is in our show notes. So feel free to download this and download the detailed information. So safe is really, what are you trying to protect from the expert? And also, I think, it's basically leaning on what you know. So what you both agree that you both know and you both happy with, what can you protect from them? Simple is, what's the one thing that matters now? Because during their their brief, you've got to be able to think about that. And then strong is, okay, when we've got the messaging, what changes if this lands? So it's kind of your acid test, really. So we're going to kind of take you through some examples of where we've worked in this environment and managed to come out the other end pretty much unscathed, really.
Well, you think that? I don't know. I'm having post-traumatic stress, Darren, talking about that. I'm joking.
So let's take you through one example regarding this safe, simple, strong matrix that we've used.
Mm-hmm.
is that when I got a call from Exeter University, they do some amazing work in biological research, and there's a real big issue for world population in regards to antibiotic resistance. So, we get a disease that's normally can be killed by antibiotics, and there are more diseases now where that's not happening because of overuse of antibiotics. It's going to be so bad that by 2050, it's going to be killing enough people through not being able to recover from these bugs that are antibiotic resistance, that it's the equivalent of 3 COVID's deaths per year. SAFE is about listening to their problem and their research. So I had an hour's worth of briefing at PhD level, which with my scraped A levels was really difficult.
No, not at all.
Yeah. But I took a tip from journalists, really, of which you were one, working at BBC. And that's really just listening and taking it all in and showing them that you understand. So very often I would say, okay, let me just test my understanding. You mean this, this, and this by what you're saying. And just showing them that I have empathy for their point of view and I can take in their knowledge, but more often than not, I was explaining it at a level that I need to communicate out to other people. So I'm starting to kind of almost train them a little bit. But so by saying this, what you mean is this, they go, yes. By the end of that conversation, which was quite complex in technical language and where they wanted to go, kind of literally a 10-year plan, but also the blockers in this, because what they wanted to do to tackle the resistance to antibiotics is introduce a new therapy called phage therapy, which is quite radical actually to Western medicine. And phage therapy is really saying that every disease actually in the real world has its own disease that could go in and kill it and get rid of it completely safely in the body. We know this. Our regulatory bodies are made for medicines and living things. Phages are neither of those. The way they work is that they are in fact neither alive nor dead. Regulatory wise, it's like we have no way of dealing with this. So simple is really going, okay, there are stories around where someone has been in a coma for 2 months, give them a phage, they're awake in 2 days, walking around in a week. What we could do is actually go, okay, is there a way we can talk to Parliament and say, for this compassionate use, for this special use, you have a fast track procedure, we're asking Parliament to do something for us. So we've simplified the message to say, we just want to do it in this one action. Okay. And so then strong is then testing the message, which is to say, let's unlock the power of phage therapy for compassionate use. So that landed really, really well. So they're able to say to Parliament, whether if it's done for compassionate use, then we can see its effectiveness.
So what you're saying is it's not about giving permission, it's about building that authority and that purpose as well, not just instructions. There was a purpose to what you were doing. Okay.
Yeah. So it's saying we can then get the ball rolling by getting permission to be able to use it for compassionate use only and having a very succinct process.
So in essence, what you're saying is that you were trying to understand what you were trying to protect in terms of information and what's the one thing that you needed right now.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Brilliant. And that's 2 really key questions that I guess people can take away from this as well, whatever scenario they're in and whoever they're working with.
Yeah. It's just understanding what's really, really important, what you can agree on, and then what's going to get the action that you want someone to take.
I think if we reflect back on this whole conversation, we've talked about the mindset, we've talked about ego, we've talked about trust, we've talked about building a kind of relationship and rapport with the expert that allows us to know, or allows them to know, that we are on their side and we are going to get the best from them. And that's the thing, isn't it? It's more than the message, it's all these other components around it.
And that's really, really important when you're being briefed by somebody, getting all this information that you have to simplify to show that you are on their side and you believe in their passion and their project and their knowledge. Does a lot to earn their trust.
Yeah, for sure. And I think you can still be that critical voice as well that they need, where you can challenge them politely where needed, but also, still build that and keep that relationship going.
Yeah. So what's your example, Lou?
Wow, goodness. Having briefed various directors in different industries, and one, I guess, that is very close to our minds, given it was almost 6 years ago, is COVID. I'm working with the Director of Public Health for the local authority. And look, when I talked earlier about being prepared, I knew this Director of Public Health pretty well because we worked on other projects and campaigns together. COVID clearly didn't fall down from the sky. We knew about it for weeks and months before we actually went into lockdown in that March 2020. But what I did do was to actually, in a particular scenario, we were having regular meetings and he was briefing me about what this virus meant, what the science was behind it. And we were starting to put information out to the public. But then what became apparent was the day of the first actual confirmed cases. And it was what people need to know now. And we were trying to confirm numbers and what we knew about a very volatile situation. We were trying to keep it simple because this was a virus that we'd never heard of before. We didn't understand the implications of it. There was a lot of fear, and it was trying not to take that fear and pass it on to the public while also being factual, honest and truthful with them. So when we talk about the framework that we've talked about today, it was simple, but also it was trying to make sure that we tell people what they need to know now. And when I said now, it was now as of a Tuesday at 5 p.m.
Yeah.
The now changed as of Wednesday, 6 p.m. The now on the Friday at 2 p.m. was different. So always be aware that your now will change.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's a very fast evolving situation where the now stays now for a month. And you're like, hooray, the now is current for a while. Other situations, the now will keep moving and moving and moving again to the point where you're like, I'm not sure what is happening now. So yeah, the now can be a movable goalpost, and that's something that we cope with in comms. But then also the changes, when we talk about safe, simple and strong, with the strong element, what are the consequences? And, you know, that can be really heavy. And I think this is why maintaining that critical voice is really important, because as much as you're in it, you also do still need to understand the wider consequences. And that comes down to even things such as who needs to know what, when they need to know it, how you're going to tell people. And COVID was such a situation where when you look at safe, simple and strong, we knew what we were trying to protect for the expert. We knew in simple terms the one thing that matters now, but the strong bit in terms of the consequences, that meant different things to different people. For workplaces, for, I don't know, food outlets, for businesses. So really you have to have that kind of periscope on where you're looking and thinking and problem solving in real time. And that's really tricky. So give yourself credit when you do it well.
If we, pressure the experts and push back, then they're going to have that fear is going to come back, and that's not going to disappear. And they could suddenly revert to their way of speaking under pressure because that's the area that they feel safe in. And that's not where you want them, is it really?
I think so. But I think going back to trust again, I've worked in scenarios, high-pressured scenarios like the ones we're talking about today, where you haven't got the luxury of time. You are against the clock. In the instance of COVID, we got a call that the first COVID official cases in our particular patch were going to be announced in an hour's time. We had an hour. Now, because of the prep, because of all the briefings we'd had previously, we were pretty prepared. But you get a call from Downing Street saying in an hour's time, we're going live with this. I mean, I'm pretty calm under pressure, but it rattles you. It really does. And I think what you also have to consider is, as much as the expert knows what they know in that time-pressured environment, they do respect your opinion. They'll say, what do you think? You rehearse, you brief, you say, right, this is what we're going to say. But they will come back and say, well, what do you think? And I think depending on that relationship we have with that person, and depending on the respect that you've built with them and the trust, you'll be able to push back and say, actually, hold that. We won't say that yet, or yes, we will, or based on our style guide, we will need to include these certain things. And they will go with it. Because
when you earn their trust, you get to those simple messages faster because they allow you, they kind of let the reins go a bit, don't they?
They do. And I think they're also learning that in this particular scenario, it's not just briefing the public. The information that they hold and retain, they were having to use that internally for staff and colleagues, for other members of public health, for other I'll say, parties and elements of the healthcare system. So this information that you are helping them to mould and learn and use, the savvy expert will know that they are not just taking this information for one purpose. They were able to use it and mould and recycle it in other ways to different audiences. So it's helping them. And that's where I think the ego and the trust and the relationship element is really important, because they will recognise you're helping me as well. Yeah. You're helping me to take this information and use it in a safe, simple and strong way.
Okay, so there you go. Hopefully we've helped you just navigate that quite difficult space, really, about working with experts. And if you're an expert as well listening to this, then hopefully we've reassured you that we're on your side, really. And
may not feel like it all the time, but we are.
No, we're very much on your side. So and do feel free to have a look at the show notes, which is a summary of these key moments from the today's episode. You can download the show notes at our website. It's at landanddeliver.co.uk. And you're more than welcome to get in touch with the show as well. You can email the show, either Louise or myself, and tell us how you got on.
So good luck with working with your experts. We're sure it will go well. And to all you dear experts, we love you and appreciate you greatly for your expertise. So keep it going.
Until next time, see you later.
See ya.